What's going on, everyone? Virgil in the cut here, and I hope you've been doing well. If this is the first time you're seeing my face, first time visiting this channel, welcome. Here I talk a lot about sustainable productivity, ways that we can continually improve ourselves, enjoy that growth, enjoy the process, and not burn out along the way. A lot of my experience comes from, obviously, my own personal experiences, but also drawing on my experiences as a former high school teacher, as someone who's currently working in higher ed, and someone who has a bunch of different career adventures and experiences in between. Now, in this video, I wanted to do something a little bit different than some of my past videos that I've already done and talk about some personal obstacles I'm currently going through right now. The intro is definitely meant as a joke, but it's also true. For the past 2 to 3 years, I've been preparing myself to go through the med school application process. I took classes part-time while working a full-time job. I took the MCAT and I went for it. And as admissions decisions have been rolling out this spring, I've learned that out of all the schools that I've applied to, I didn't get into a single one. But what this video is it's not meant to be a pity party or a rage against the system kind of rant. Don't get me wrong, a lot of sweat and money and time and money went into this journey, so it is difficult not seeing things play out the way I had hoped. But at the same time, I don't feel crushed as if there's no way forward for me. I think a huge reason for that is because I've faced rejection before and have learned to deal with rejection in different ways. And I want to use this experience as an opportunity to talk about how I'm continuing to climb through this current setback that I'm facing. And of course, I feel like this channel wouldn't represent real sustainable productivity and progress if it was just me talking about the wins that I got all the time, because let's be honest, we take a lot of L's on the way up. You just gotta, orient the L's in a way that, they keep moving you upwards. Wow, that was corny. To be honest, I still went back and forth personally about whether I should even share this video or talk about my experiences, but ultimately I decided to share my thoughts on not getting into medical school because I know that, especially around now, there are probably quite a few people out there who are in a similar position. Lots of people who are applying to college programs, graduate school programs, and seeing their peers or friends or other people getting in, or maybe you're on the job hunt and you've just been applying to jobs over and over and over again and nothing seems to be panning out. And so this video is really a little reminder for myself moving forward. And I hope it's also a source of encouragement for those of you also in a difficult spot. As always, I'll include a few actionable steps of what I'm doing to push through this setback and share how you might be able to do the same in your own development journey. Of course, I can only speak from my own experiences and observations, and there are definitely people out there with different circumstances and different opinions than mine. So I encourage you to listen to as many diverse perspectives as possible as you think about your own way moving forward. And so let's get into it. In this video, I'm going to talk about some common mental mindset traps that I've often fallen into after setbacks similar to this one, how I'm trying to change things up to develop healthier mindsets moving forward in the future, and how you might be able to adopt some of those healthier mindsets for yourself as well. As I mentioned, this isn't the first time I've been denied or rejected. At one point in my young professional career, I probably applied to 30 or 40 jobs and got no one getting back to me, and it won't be the last time I get rejected either.
Like, for real, if we talk about rejection, check out this man's dating record.
Bruh. But especially in high school and college, I found myself getting caught in two mindset traps on opposite ends of the spectrum. Neither extreme was good for my well-being or my career trajectory and development, so I hope you can learn from my own experiences. And in one corner, we have the first toxic mindset that you can have during a setback, something that I've definitely fallen victim to, especially early on in high school, college, and my first few years after graduating. It's something we're all familiar with, and that's the comparison trap. It's so easy to see other people's successes as measurements for our own shortcomings. We live in a culture where it's so easy to feel behind, whether that's in prestige, money, relationships, confidence, anything really. And there's already so much content out there that talks about how, comparing ourselves to others just isn't a recipe for success, but the fact that we still feel pressure to measure up against others speaks to how hard it can be just to feel confident in your own shoes and walk your own path. This mindset can be particularly dangerous because it stops you from taking action. I remember often in college, I would see friends and peers seemingly move so much faster than me, in developing their own careers, and it got easy to be overwhelmed into that inaction or indecision. So here we have a mindset where you can be intimidated to make no movements, take no risks, either because you don't have the confidence or you're too scared to make the wrong move. On the other end, there's this other extreme that's also equally harmful, and admittedly, it's something that I struggle with more now than I have in the past, and that's this need to always be in motion, to more specifically always be focused on the future long-term plan, to be able to say that I'm locked into a career trajectory, to the point where sometimes I can avoid just an awareness of what available opportunities are around me right now in the present. Now, obviously, I don't think that planning is a bad thing at all. If you've watched my other videos, it's pretty easy to see. I like having a plan, I like being prepared, but thinking about the future in a way that gives you anxiety can be really unhealthy. A common question that students might experience during that last year of college is, what are you doing after graduation, right? Your friends might ask you that, maybe former internship managers might ask you that, professors, family members. And to be honest, being able to answer that question has a certain amount of comfort and security that comes with it. Now, sometimes that desire to have that security and comfort can push you to make a decision that isn't right for you, right? Either because one, you haven't really thought something out, or two, you're making a decision you know you aren't invested in long term, but again, you're seeking to have that validation or seeking to have that security and being able to say, I have a plan. The truth is, I'm no stranger to this feeling at all. As I figure out even right now the next steps that I need to take for myself, I feel this immense pressure to somehow know the answer right away. And I see the same pressure looking at current and former students of mine, peers, colleagues. We're all experiencing the similar pressure to proclaim that we're on this definite path to sound decisive, or this pressure to save face, especially in front of family, friends, people we look up to, people we don't want to let down, including ourselves. Or this pressure that is oh God, I'm 20 years old, and is that a midlife crisis I see out in the distance? So between these two extremes, there has to be a healthier way forward. Obviously, we can't be stuck in inaction because we're too afraid to make the wrong move, or we're just super overwhelmed, but we also don't want to make moves just for the sake of moves that aren't our own, right? That we're being pressured into making because we feel like we need to have a decision right now. And so what are things that I've found to be the most helpful in transforming these toxic mindsets into healthier ones? The first tip I have that I'm doing right now is explicitly identifying who my support squad is. And what I mean by that is, we have these moments where we're facing our most difficult obstacles, difficult questions, darkest moments. There tend to be people that we reach out to during these moments, whether it's for emotional reasons, whether it's for developmental or mentorship reasons. And so sometimes after a setback, it's really easy to feel embarrassed about not achieving a goal or not pursuing the route you originally had set out to go for. And so sometimes this fear of judgment can close ourselves off from connecting with people who may be willing and may be able to help you right now. My friends watching this already know I'm pretty bad at asking for help. I like to see myself as independent, self-sufficient, and I don't tend to reach out for help until things get really bad. I'm working on it. But the reason I've gotten better at asking for help over time is that I've experienced time and time again friends, mentors, and colleagues helping me during my worst moments when I'm in a bind. And those moments where I've been able to reach out and they've been able to support me have been moments that have made me a better person and have been more willing to help others in the future. That time that I mentioned I was applying to 30 to 40 jobs with no hits, it was actually a mentor or friend that had reached out to me during that time of need that ultimately led me to gaining my next opportunity, where I've continued to grow, be supported, and been able to create an impact even to this day. It's actually really funny how these stories work out, because talking to her after the fact, I found out that she had been reaching out to me as well because she needed support, and it turns out that that support works both ways. Reaching out to your supporters, and not just when things are bad, can also make sure you don't get lost in your own thoughts. I have this tendency to sometimes get into tunnel vision, whether that's for my personal life or my professional life. And being able to talk to some of my closer friends or even just my mentors, they can sometimes pull me out of that tunnel vision and open my eyes to other possibilities and alternative pathways moving forward. One thing that I'm doing right now that I encourage you to do, especially if you're pushing through a setback, is to take out a note and write down 5 people that you can reach out to for support, your support squad. And these can be mentors, these can be close friends, and don't just write down their names, but reach out to them. Reach out to them after this video. You never know how they might be able to support you, even if you're in a place where you don't think you need help. Helpful tip number 2 to combating these more toxic mindsets is keeping in mind that you have more time than you think. And exploration is always a valid next step. A lot of that pressure that we feel is often just self-imposed. And I talked about that need to always be in motion, because having a concrete plan feels better than saying, I have no idea what comes next after this. It's funny thinking about the need to build your support squad, determine who your supporters are, because this second point seems to be a lesson that my friends and my supporters constantly need to remind me of. I remember when I was a teacher, one of my closest friends, who was also my co-teacher, was a huge fan of always saying we need to measure twice and just cut once. Or even just last week, 2 of my closest friends had to remind me of the value of intentionally slowing down, even just for a moment, to give myself space to reflect on what I wanted to do next. Speaking from the perspective of someone who's always tried to stuff every single moment, every single second of my schedule with something productive to do, I know that sometimes motion doesn't always equal progress. You can sprint the wrong direction out of a need to move, when sometimes it might have been just better to pause, even just for a second, for a minute, for an hour, for a day, for a little bit, just to reassess the right direction of where you need to head next. As a former teacher, I saw this a lot with my students too. When your peers seem like they're all on this set path that you aren't on, this path to success, that doesn't necessarily mean you're behind, but what it does mean is you need to take the time to ask yourself the right questions, so that you're not just pursuing any opportunity that shows up your way, but that you're taking the time to decide what are the right opportunities to pursue for you. And so as I'm getting a taste of my own medicine, what does this mean for me? It means giving myself the space to reflect and think about my career trajectory since graduating college. In the short amount of time that I've done that, I've been able to acknowledge that the work I've done the last 2 to 3 years is work I really enjoy doing. And not just the last 2 to 3 years, but since graduating college, there are a ton of accomplishments that I've been incredibly proud of, despite the ups and downs. It also means acknowledging that medicine could still be the way forward, but ultimately, another question I'm asking myself is there a way that I can continue helping others become the best versions of themselves, regardless of what industry I work in? How can I continue to support people, to heal people, even in the position I'm in right now? Especially if you're trying to push through a setback like me, I encourage you to sit down, give yourself some space, and write down questions and answers to those questions that matter most, that can help push you forward. So I know we've been talking about my own med school journey and career development, so some guiding questions related to careers could include, why did you pursue the opportunity you pursued in the first place? Are you still interested in doing that? And if you can't move forward with one path, are there some other alternative ways that you can still achieve similar goals? Or who can you connect with if there are new directions that you're looking at to learn more about those new paths? Now, you might be in a space where you have no idea where to start, and I've definitely been there after a setback, especially career-wise. You might be in a spot where you're like, I don't even know what my interests are anymore. Like, if I don't have plan A, like, where else can I go? And so if you're in that spot, I encourage you to reach out to more people, maybe those same 5 people that you've wrote down as your support squad, and reach out to them, ask them about their own life experiences. And in your conversations with them, you may find out things you like, things you don't like. Maybe you can walk away with a new goal, or more connections, new connections, or even new ways to approach the same interests that you've already had. I think this is especially important if you're interested in pursuing a new route, because sometimes we like the idea of pursuing something and then we get there and we realize it's not actually what we wanted in the end. As we approach the end of this video, if you made it this far, thank you. I cannot thank you enough. As someone who's just started out making content like this, it's always encouraging to receive some of the notes that I've gotten, to see those first initial subscribers. and to see that there are people who are able to get value out of the content that I'm providing. So I hope that this video is a source of encouragement, and I hope if you're in a similar position where you're bouncing back from a setback, trying to push through, I hope you can take at least one piece of actionable advice from me. As always, I would love to hear your own experiences and advice that you have through your own struggles, advice from me, so feel free to share those below as well. After all, I'm still human myself. I'm still learning how to develop healthier mindsets after setbacks like this one, but I will say that this time around I'm feeling a lot more comfortable, a lot more confident, because instead of just looking at this setback as a failure, and I've tried to avoid using that word failure during this video, it's because I'm approaching this more as a learning opportunity. And as cliche as that might sound, having people to support you, having that support squad, being able to really challenge myself into not comparing myself to the trajectories and paths of others has made this whole decision and this process, one, a lot less salty, despite, again, the intro, because I know I don't have to figure out the next step just by myself. And so I'm excited to discover whatever it is in my future. For now, that future is the next video. So I honestly hope that you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you in the next.